Hey guys, welcome to I'm an Actor, Not a Therapist. I'm Sammy. So, what's going on? So, I've been kind of thinking a lot lately about this whole thought process of being stuck, right? So, there's a couple of different kinds of stuck that I've realized. You could be stuck at a job that you don't like. You can be stuck in a relationship you don't like. You can be just stuck in your to-do list items that you just can't seem to get done, or stuck on not making that phone call, or just stuck. Um, but the problem with staying stuck like that is that stuff then doesn't get done and stuff doesn't change, right? So, like, if you're stuck in a job, but you're not job hunting, then you're going to stay stuck. If you're in a relationship with somebody, be it romantic or otherwise, that you're just not, completely committed to anymore, that doesn't do you or the other person any good, because you'll be miserable, you'll start resenting them, and in turn they will at some point get hurt by you, or they will hurt you, at least in your interpretation, they'll hurt you. The appointments don't get done, the to-do list doesn't get done, nothing changes, nothing moves forward. And what I've learned, because again, that should be like the logo of the show, that should be the mantra of the show. What I've learned is that we as humans, right, we want to evolve, we want to learn, we want to grow. That's just what's built into us, right? So you're stuck. So what are you going to do about it? Right? Because you can't stay stuck forever. Like, you can't stay stuck forever. But what ends up happening, I've noticed, is that you get stuck, you spiral, you hyperfixate on something in part of the spiral, and nothing ever gets done, nothing ever gets fixed. Everything kind of stays as stagnant as it is. So how do we get unstuck? How do we move ourselves forward? How do we progress ourselves forward? I could sit here and give you practical reasons and practical things to do. Pick up the phone and finally make the call, find the courage to do it, find the courage to have that conversation with whoever you need to have the conversation with. I could sit here and give you 1,000 different things that you can do, right? I could sit here and quote books. I can quote people far smarter than I am, far more skilled, far more further in their journey than I am. I could sit here and quote people all day. But that's not necessarily going to do anybody any good. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you can certainly be given tools to do what you need to do and to progress the way you need to progress. But unless you're willing to actually take the steps to actually do it, nothing's going to change, right? So then what do? What is the first step to getting unstuck? Practical or not, what I've kind of come to realize is that if we're stuck, let's take a look at like the bigger things, like relationships and things like that. Because for to-do list things, there are practical things you can do. My therapist has given me practical ways to get through those. Take a look at your list and set a timer. Pick one or two things on your list and set a timer of how long you think it will take to do each item, and then when that timer goes off, then you stop. And hopefully you will have crossed something off the list. That's a very practical way of, looking at a tangible to-do list, is just to kind of break it down. But we're not talking about that. I mean, you can absolutely get paralyzingly stuck looking at a list like that. I mean, I certainly do. If you come to my house, if you know me well enough, you come to my house, I've got 4 different to-do lists on my refrigerator right now. One for my creative stuff, one for pretty much every room in my house, and one for like life stuff. And that's where some of the big, hard stuff goes, is the life list, right? So on the life list is things like talk to this person about this project you want them involved in, make this doctor's appointment, make this dentist appointment, do this big thing that you've been hiding from and you haven't wanted to do or haven't been able to do. So like the bigger things, like having those conversations, making those appointments, anything that involves another person, right? Because I think one of the reasons why we get stuck sometimes is because, especially when it involves having to involve other people, we can only control ourselves, right? We can't control other people, right? So I could go to my friend, hey, can I talk to you? And they could turn around and be like, oh, I can't right now. Okay, well, that's not how I wanted that conversation to go. Or you try to confront somebody about something, and instead of it making you feel better, it makes you feel worse because they said something to you. It's not something you can control. So I think a lot of being stuck sometimes, especially when we're talking about having to interact with other people, or, if there's somebody else involved in why we're stuck, it gets really tricky, because in order to handle what we need to handle, in order to have the big conversations and do the big things that we have to get done, we kind of have to involve other people. And sometimes that can be really scary, especially if you have anxiety, especially if you have social anxiety in general, or if you have, a trauma response or something like that. It can get really tricky, and it can get really scary for you to go ahead and do that. So how do we go about doing this? That's I think is the big question. And I've learned a couple things, and I've been able to have some pretty big conversations with people that I've had to have over the past year and some change. Not saying that those conversations were any easier, because I finally had them. They were definitely hard in the moment. I definitely felt myself shaking. I definitely saw myself shaking. I definitely had to, do that whole breathing regulation. There's plenty of things that I had to do while still overcoming the being stuck, because what was happening with being stuck, and I'm talking about being in relationships that I did not want to be in, and embarking on relationships that I wanted to embark on, that I'm still kind of cultivating within my current friend group. What I've learned is that the longer I stayed stuck in the relationships I didn't want to be in, the more anxious I got, the more I dreaded my phone going off, the more being with the people that I didn't want to be with felt like a chore. And there was a moment, I'll never forget this moment, because it was the only time that I felt a physical response to being with somebody I didn't want to be with. And that's the physical response that I had, is what caused me to not be stuck anymore. That told me, no, this is something that you have to address. You can't ignore this anymore. And I was with a group of people that, until, recent to that moment that I'm talking about right now, I considered them friends. And then I went to this event that we all decided to go on together. And I remember sitting there, and the only way that I can describe this is that I had an out-of-body experience where I could hear the conversation around me, but my brain, my body, my entire being would not allow me to participate in the conversation because no part of me wanted to be with those people anymore. No part of me wanted to be with those people anymore at all. And I sat with that feeling. I sat with that feeling for probably a month and some change after that night. And what wound up happening is that pretty much it got to a point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. And I pretty much cut 4 or 5 people out of my life in one fell swoop, because I let it build for so long. I was stuck for so long that when I did finally end the relationships, I felt so much better afterwards. It took time to heal. Like, I'm always going to be honest with you guys. I'm never going to tell you that things are roses and rainbows if they're not. Like, it's just not going to happen. I will say that once the relationships ended, I had to take care of the trauma that was associated with them. I'm still kind of dealing with the trauma that was associated with them, because I realized walking back away from the relationship how toxic and traumatic it probably was, without me really knowing it. So walking away from it definitely gave me new perspective about it, right? So that I will say. But what I found happened afterwards is that the new circle of friends that I have, that I've chosen, that I have said out loud to more than one person, I want these people in my life. I don't want these people to go anywhere. I want relationships, deep, meaningful, connecting relationships with these people. And what I kind of came to realize is that as long as I was stuck in the previous relationships that I had with that toxic group, I was never going to allow myself to fully have the deep connecting conversations, the deep connecting relationships that I now am allowing myself to cultivate with my new group of friends. So benefit to not being stuck anymore is kind of how we're getting back to where we started from, right? So all is to say, and I know I kind of waffled on you guys, get used to it, you're going to hear a lot of waffles on here. All is to say, like, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you could have if you allow yourself to become unstuck, if you allow yourself to break off that relationship or talk to that person that you're in the relationship with and see if they're willing to work with you to fix whatever you feel might be wrong. You know, if you don't ask for the things you want, the answer is always going to be no. But it's not going to be no because the other person said it, because you stayed stuck and you determined that the answer was no. You don't know that the answer might be yes. Even if the answer is no, like, let's just say that the answer is no, right? You ask your friend, hey, can you do this for me? And they tell you no. The no might be a no for now, and then you revisit it later. Or it might be, no, I don't feel comfortable, or no, I'd rather do something else with you instead. But if you aren't open to having that conversation, you're never going to know. As I sit here and pretty much hold up a mirror to myself, because there's a lot of things I'd love to do with people that I haven't asked about because I'm stuck. I am stuck. I am trying to become unstuck. And every day I try a little bit more and a little bit more. And I ask for just a little bit more. Because chances are, if you're stuck, it's because you're not asking for what you need in one form or another, or you're not allowing yourself to have something that you need in one form or another, right? And then what happens? You spiral, you hyperfixate, you pretty much work yourself up into a tizzy, is the way I kind of describe it. But there's no one answer, right? And there's no one way to fix it. This is one size fits all. No, it's not like that. We're all built differently. We all have to go at our own pace. But what I'm challenging you to do, and what I'm inviting you to do, is even start small. Ask somebody, anybody, if you're stuck, with somebody, whether it's a good relationship, bad relationship, or a relationship that you want to have, start by asking for a phone call. Hey, can we talk about this? There's no harm in that, or hey, can we text each other? However you're comfortable communicating. Although I would say, if you're going to have a conversation this big, it probably would be better to either do it over the phone or a video chat or in person if you're able to do that. If it's a big enough conversation, you don't want anything misunderstood. Again, take everything that I say with a grain of salt, you guys. I'm figuring out as I go along too. And like I always say, like, I'm an actor, I'm a person, I'm not a therapist. I can't tell you why we operate the way we do, or why, we stay stuck. Maybe we stay stuck because it's comfortable. If I do something new, if I ask for something, then I have to do something new, and I have to do something scary. And I don't want to do something new, and I don't want to do something scary. So I'm just going to stay in this relationship. I'm just going to stay where I am because at least this is familiar. At least this is something that I know. Right? So all this to say, you don't have to stay stuck. But just know that in order to get unstuck, you're going to have to, walk out of your comfort zone, even just a little bit. And I know that that's scary as hell. I know that it is, because I myself am working on walking outside of my comfort zone. Not saying you can't visit your comfort zone every so often, but again, we as humans, we want to learn, we want to grow, we want to have deep connections to people. It's built into us. And sometimes we do more harm than good staying in our comfort zone, and we need to, in order to move forward and grow, we have to work on, what it is that we need to work on in order to get ourselves unstuck. It's inevitable. Sorry, there's no way around it. You can't go under it. You can't go over it. You have to go through it. That's the unfortunate thing, and nobody can do it for us, right? Right? I would love to turn to somebody and go, hey, can you have this conversation for me? Because I really don't feel like doing this right now. I can't do that. That's not helpful to me. That's not helpful to you. We have to be able to take care of it ourselves in whatever way we can, at whatever pace we're comfortable with. I'm not saying race out of your comfort zone, with a pair of running, don't race out of your comfort zone like you're doing a marathon or anything like that. That can do more harm than good. But little things every day, or challenge yourself once a week to have a hard conversation. and then actually have the hard conversation. That's the tricky part. You can have the best of intentions of getting yourself unstuck, but if you don't actually work towards it, you're not gonna get unstuck. You're not gonna make the progress that you want to make. And again, I'm saying this because, I've been there. I'm still there. But I'm working on it every day. And that's all I can ask of people. That's all any of us can ask of ourselves, is to work on this stuff every day. Just a little bit at a time. We're not looking to, change our entire lives in 24 hours. That's not what we want. But we want to at least work towards what it is that we want. You know what I mean? Just something for everybody to think about, myself included. Like, I'm definitely doing this with you guys. There's a couple of very hard conversations. They're good conversations, but hard conversations that I need to have, that I'll be having hopefully within the next few weeks. But even sitting here saying that, I know that I had to come up with a plan for that. So I'm learning as well. But if you guys like the episode, if you want to hear more, if you want to be, know when things are coming out, go ahead and like and subscribe. That really is immensely helpful. And I hope that you all enjoyed the episode. I hope that you all were able to take something from it. And I hope that you will be back next week for another episode of I'm an Actor, Not a Therapist. Have a fabulous day, you guys.